The storm outside was relentless, howling through the night, but inside the grand, glass-walled office of Jackson Corp, the only thing that mattered was his daughter's worsening condition. CEO Samuel Jackson, a successful businessman known for his unyielding drive and focus, had never been so vulnerable. His world had always been about numbers, profits, and strategies. But tonight, as he paced the hallway of his luxury penthouse, he was a father, terrified for his little girl, Emma. She had been running a high fever for hours. Nothing he tried seemed to work. The doctors had told him it could be a common cold or something more serious. But the uncertainty gnawed at him. In the middle of his corporate empire, this was the one thing he couldn't control. And he hated it. "Please just stay with me," Samuel whispered, his voice cracking as he looked down at his daughter, who was barely conscious on the couch, clutching her favorite stuffed bear. Her tiny hand was cold, and he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The doctors on the phone had told him to take her to the hospital immediately, but the storm made it impossible to drive. He wasn't sure if he could trust the emergency services to get here in time. He had always been in control, but right now he felt helpless. As the minutes dragged on, the phone call came through. It was his business partner, David. "Samuel, we need to discuss the merger tomorrow." "It's crucial," David said, his voice all business as always. Samuel barely heard him. "David, my daughter's sick. I have to go to the hospital." There was a brief silence before David spoke again. "I understand, Samuel, but you know how important tomorrow is. You need to stay focused." The words stung. Samuel knew his business was important, but this was his daughter's life. As he hung up the phone, a strange noise interrupted the silence. He looked out the window, and through the swirling snow, he saw headlights approaching. But it wasn't the ambulance he had been expecting. A figure emerged from the car, moving quickly through the snow. It was a man dressed in a thick winter coat, a bright red backpack slung over his shoulder. His name was Ethan, a delivery driver for the company Samuel had hired for logistics. Ethan was a single dad with no glamorous career. No title, no office, but he was about to become Samuel's lifeline. "Is she all right?" Ethan asked, his breath visible in the cold air. Samuel, overwhelmed with emotion, could only nod. I don't know. "I've tried everything," Samuel said, his voice trembling. Ethan took a deep breath, glancing at the snowstorm, then at the girl. "We need to get her to the hospital." "Let's go." Samuel hesitated. "But the roads are blocked. The ambulance isn't here yet. You can't just walk her there. I'm a delivery driver. I walk through storms, make impossible deliveries. If anyone can get through, it's me, trust me." Samuel, not knowing what else to do, nodded, and without further words, Ethan gently lifted Emma into his arms. The cold was unbearable, the snow stinging their faces, but Ethan didn't hesitate. He carried her through the streets step by step, pushing through the blinding storm. Samuel followed, his heart pounding, knowing that every second mattered. It wasn't just the storm that was challenging. It was Ethan's own battle. He had been a single dad for years after his wife had left. Life had never been easy for him, but when it came to helping others, he was always there. He knew what it was like to struggle, to be the last one in line for help, and to face a world that didn't care. But tonight everything was different. As they walked through the storm, Samuel couldn't help but think about how different Ethan was from him. He was used to a life where money and power solved everything. But Ethan didn't have that luxury. His daughter wasn't the CEO's daughter, and he wasn't surrounded by a team of doctors, financial advisors, and resources. He was just a man trying to do what was right. The hospital was finally in sight, the lights flickering through the snow. Samuel had never felt more grateful. They made it inside, and the doctors immediately rushed Emma into care. The waiting room was quiet as Samuel sat there, his mind racing. His daughter was safe now, but something inside him had changed. Ethan, who had left to warm up, returned to find Samuel pacing back and forth, a look of disbelief on his face. Samuel didn't know how to express the gratitude he felt. All the wealth and power he had accumulated over the years didn't matter. It was Ethan's humanity that had saved his daughter. "Thank you," Samuel finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." Ethan shrugged. "You don't have to. I'm just glad she's all right." Samuel looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. This wasn't just a man who delivered packages. This was a man who understood what it meant to fight for something more important than yourself. The doctors eventually confirmed that Emma had a severe infection, but she was stable now. She would recover. Samuel couldn't have been more relieved. The next day, Samuel returned to his office. He thought about the merger, the deals, the countless hours spent growing Jackson Corp, but something had shifted in him. He realized that all the success in the world didn't mean a thing if you didn't have people who cared about you when it mattered most. He looked at the clock on the wall. It was time to make a change, not just for his company, but for his life. He made a decision then and there. From now on, his company would prioritize people, his employees, his community, and those who needed help. He would never forget how a simple delivery driver had saved his daughter's life. The next morning, Samuel met with Ethan. "I owe you everything," Samuel said, shaking his hand. Ethan smiled, a humble smile. "No need to thank me. I was just doing what I could." "No," Samuel insisted. "You saved her life. And because of you, I've learned the real meaning of success." Ethan looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in Samuel's voice. "I want to do something for you," Samuel continued. "You've been there when no one else was. You've made a difference in ways that no amount of money can measure." Ethan's eyes widened as Samuel offered him a position in his company. No longer as a delivery driver, but as someone who would help reshape Jackson Corp's approach to success. The job offer wasn't just about money or status. It was a recognition of the humanity Ethan had shown. It was a promise that no matter how far they came, no one would be left behind. As they shook hands, Samuel knew that this was the beginning of something new, something that was bigger than himself, his company and his wealth. It was about kindness, compassion, and taking care of the people who mattered most. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Tell us how kindness can change lives. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness for more heartwarming stories that inspire. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring stories that touch hearts. See you in the next video.